Almost every single Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z episode that you've watched is a lie. I'm not talking about the story or the characters, I'm referring to the actual colors of the anime, the audio and the visual presentation of what you're experiencing. Right now, if you decide to stream Dragon Ball on Crunchyroll or if you dust off those old DVDs, you're watching a degraded, distorted version of what Toei Animation and Toriyama have created. The original Toei film masters of Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z are rotting away in Japanese storage facilities. Their colors are shifting from blue skies to sickly green as the characters go from natural skin tones to looking like they have lobster pink skin. Toei Animation has done very little to prevent the destruction of their own legacy. Through negligence and corporate greed, they have allowed Dragon Ball to be preserved in the worst way possible. Here we're talking about one of the most influential anime series ever created, yet there's literally no way to watch it as originally intended. This is why I'm arguing that we need a complete anime remake of the Dragon Ball franchise. The only good home video release of Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z is the Dragon Box releases. These have been worshipped by fans as the definitive version, but even then they are far from perfect. As you can see during the fight between Goku and Vegeta, the skies have turned green. Now this isn't an artistic choice, it's a result of the film stock rotting in storage. The blue color deteriorated to a teal green and the orange geese have turned red, with skin tones shifting so dramatically that characters look like they've got lobster skin. The fan restoration projects by teams like Seed of Might have tried to measure colors using systems that break down the hue, saturation and brightness into precise numbers, like where they analyzed Goku's eyes, which should have been a neutral grey, but they found massive color contamination. Some shots of the original Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z anime showed 20% saturation in areas that should have been pure white. Because of how badly preserved the Dragon Ball masters for the original episodes are, it's resulted in a fundamental destruction of the color balance of the series. And this is without even going into the fact that Toei Animation have done such a bad job of preserving the anime, they even threw away their original master audio tapes for the episodes. This is why the Japanese audio option on the home media releases or on streaming platforms sounds so muffled, like it's been recorded underwater. And when fans had tried to offer Toei Animation their home recorded broadcast audio for free, Toei pretty much said no. Thankfully, from the 80s and 90s, some fans preserved their home video recordings, which groups like Team Mirolo had professionally restored, thus giving us a full Japanese broadcast audio version of the Dragon Ball series. These sound so much better than Toei Animation's mono Japanese audio tracks, and you can hear the comparison here.
この一戦の勝算はいかがでしょうか。孫悟空選手、この一戦の勝算はいかがでしょうか。
To add to all of these terrible practices, the North American distributor for Dragon Ball, Funimation at the time, released several really bad home video releases of the series. You have the Dragon Ball Z orange bricks, which cropped 20% of the footage from the top and bottom of the screen, as they tried to force Dragon Ball to have a 16:9 widescreen aspect ratio like it was some newly released modern anime. On top of this, they cranked the color saturation until characters looked sunburned, and they applied noise reduction that was so aggressive it deleted actual animation lines on the footage. And then on top of all of this, they had the audacity to market this as a remastered release. If this wasn't bad enough, Funimation's English dub of Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z created its own problems, like transforming Goku from a naive, pure-hearted fighter into a clone of Superman spouting moral speeches that never existed in the original Japanese version. And even that line, "It's over 9,000," that had become so iconic was actually a mistranslation, as in the Japanese, Vegeta says it's over 8,000. Attack names were also completely changed, as the Makanko Sappo was renamed to Special Beam Cannon, and these various dub-isms and inaccuracies have become so ingrained within the Western fandom that there is a large majority of Dragon Ball fans that are totally ignorant to the inaccuracies of the dub. In most recent memory, we had the 30th anime anniversary of Dragon Ball, and in commemoration of this, Funimation decided to release 30th anniversary sets. After fans trashed the original orange bricks, Funimation promised that they were going to release a definitive collector's edition. Instead, they took that old garbage, removed the crop, and added fake grain over the top. and for this 30th anniversary set, they weren't even creating it out of their own pocket, they were trying to crowdfund it, and it barely met its minimum goal because fans saw through the scam that Funimation was trying to do. So it's not only the Western distributor of Dragon Ball who is ruining home releases, Toei Animation has now joined the party, as with their Dragon Ball Super Broly home release, it had this crazy green tint that made everyone look seasick. Funimation responded by saying that this is the version that they received from Japan, and as far as they know, it's identical to what was screened in theaters. Except the version that was released in the UK was fine because they had corrected the green tint. The Funimation version, and what we had seen on streaming platforms, had this hideous green tint over it. And the worst thing is that Funimation and Toei Animation tried to gaslight fans who had noticed this error on their part. Hopefully you should have a better idea of how the original Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z anime have been mistreated for years by these various different companies. This is why I'm saying that a complete Dragon Ball anime remake makes sense, as the talent to make this happen does exist. Legendary Dragon Ball animator Masaki Sato explained that simple characters are easier to animate and you can use more drawings per character when he's speaking about the character designs that you should have for an anime. The issue is that a lot of the modern Dragon Ball anime productions have detailed designs thanks to Tadayoshi Yamamura, as they have multiple shading tones and intricate clothing that actually hurts animation quality. When animators spend extra time drawing every belt buckle and shadow, they can't focus on the fluid movement of the animation. This is why some of the animation in Dragon Ball Super looked so jarring, as there was limited and linear action. As characters' movement was very stiff, there was detailed close-up shots with minimal mouth movement, and rinse and repeat. Compare this to some of the scenes from the original Dragon Ball series like Goku vs Krillin, where there were simple designs with minimal shading, as it allowed animators to focus on complex choreography and dynamic movement. Nobody understands this more than Shintani, who did the character designs for Dragon Ball Super Broly, and it's the reason why that movie had looked so great. There's also Chigashi Kubota, who represents everything that a Dragon Ball remake should achieve. His obsession with Dragon Ball started in elementary school, as he decided in the 5th grade to become an animator specifically because of Dragon Ball. He studied legendary animators like Katsuyoshi Nakatsuru and Masaki Sato. Then years later, he worked alongside these very individuals on Dragon Ball Super Broly. We all know how disappointing it was when Dragon Ball Super Superhero was announced to be the first all-CG Dragon Ball film, but Kubota agreed to work on the film as long as he had a traditional animation scene in his contract. So he refused to work on an all-CG film without contributing some hand-drawn sequences to it. Those reanimated classic scenes at the beginning of the opening were as a result of Kubota fighting for them. Thanks to that, we get a real visual representation of what Dragon Ball could look like when somebody who actually cares is behind it. While you might think that there isn't much of a case for the Dragon Ball anime to be remade, well, what if I told you that a currently serialized and ongoing anime is getting its own anime remake? Wit Studio announced that One Piece would be getting an anime remake under their studio, and they shattered every single excuse that the industry has. This announcement was so unexpected, especially for a series that was still currently running. Netflix is backing the production, as they are doing a complete reboot of the One Piece anime from the very beginning, as they are condensing every single story arc into smaller portions without all of the filler from Toei Animation. The Wit Studio One Piece remake features the incredible creative team behind Attack on Titan seasons 1 to 3. This is pretty crazy since Toei Animation owns the rights to One Piece, but for some reason Wit Studio is working on a reboot. This means that a similar situation could happen with Dragon Ball, where another animation studio works on a remake if Toei Animation are unable to themselves, or if they just don't have the resources to. One Piece wasn't the first successful anime to get a remake, as the Hunter x Hunter 2011 reboot had done so much to build upon the original 1999 version via modern animation, improved pacing of the story, and adapting even more of the manga than the 1999 version. Then you have Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood Remake, which became the gold standard for how anime remakes should be handled. They took the original manga source material seriously while leveraging modern animation techniques, as they created a faithful adaptation of the original manga. As we know, the 2003 FMA series did verge off into an anime original story, but Brotherhood fixes this. These examples demolish the argument argument that reboots and remakes are unnecessary or they don't really provide any additional value. When done properly, they don't just match the quality of the original work, they exceed it in every measurable way. The One Piece Wit Studio remake has had overwhelmingly positive reception, and it proves that fans are hungry for quality over quantity. If the old anime from the 80s and 90s hasn't even been properly preserved, then I think that there's a valid argument to have an anime remake or a reboot. Following the passing of Akira Toriyama, there's been a major rights war over the future of the franchise. This involves three different parties. First, you have Shueisha, who owns the manga rights to Dragon Ball, then Toei Animation, who handles the animation production, and Akio Iyoku's Capsule Corporation Tokyo, which claims authority over anime and non-manga related content. This is a major battle over who has the control over the future of the Dragon Ball franchise. Akio Iyoku went rogue in 2023 with Toriyama's apparent blessing. He'd been Toriyama's spokesperson for years, the guy who companies had contacted for creator input from Toriyama. When Shueisha had attempted to reassign him away from Dragon Ball, Toriyama refused to cooperate, demonstrating just how much trust Toriyama had in Iyoku. The chairman of Shueisha even personally visited Toriyama's home in order to convince him to allow them to retain control of the franchise. But this meeting was a failure. Following the death of Akira Toriyama in March of 2024, this had turned this entire rights battle over Dragon Ball into an even more complicated situation. Now, major companies like Bandai Namco don't know who to turn to in order to consult for new Dragon Ball projects. Whenever a meeting for a new project is needed, they require representatives from all three parties, from Shueisha, Toei Animation, and Capsule Corporation Tokyo. This makes any attempt at a Dragon Ball related project a nightmare. This battle over the rights may explain why the Dragon Ball Super anime adaptation has been stalled and why we've had no new anime adaptation since the Super anime ended back in 2018. I do think that the rights battle over the Dragon Ball franchise needs to be resolved if we are to get a remake of the original Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z anime series. Some people are happy with how Dragon Ball Kai was handled, but in my opinion, I believe it to be a lazy retrace of the anime. While yes, the pacing has been improved, but this is the only improvement from the original anime in the 90s. And this isn't even going over Dragon Ball Kai The Final Chapters, which adapted the Buu arc, which has that hideous green tint from Toei's recent Dragon Ball releases. The old Dragon Ball anime has been handled so badly that teams like Seed of Might have worked together with multiple people in order to fully correct the original Dragon Ball release, as they've taken it upon themselves to color correct millions of individual frames because Toei Animation won't do it themselves. They have actually developed a fan-made custom technique for removing color contamination, fixing overexposed bleached episodes of Dragon Ball, and eliminating artifacts that just shouldn't exist in the release. Recently, a European distributor, AB Group, had a French Dragon Ball release which used better color correction than any Toei remaster or home video release that we've had thus far. They also included the fan-preserved broadcast audio, which is infinitely superior to the Japanese optical audio. I think they had their own initiative to download the Dragon Ball broadcast audio from pirated releases and to include it on an official French release. So fans and some distributors are trying desperately to fix the mistakes of Toei Animation and even Funimation. I do think that a franchise like Dragon Ball that's generated over $24 billion globally does deserve to have an anime reboot which introduces a new generation of fans to the franchise. This way, Dragon Ball would also be future-proofing itself. A remake would give us a definitive, high-quality animated product which would stand the test of time as it can be experienced and loved by fans for years to come. Since the original anime was produced in 480p resolution with outdated technology and production methods, the global anime market is projected to hit $60 billion by 2030, with North America growing at 16.3% of that share annually. Netflix's involvement with the One Piece anime remake demonstrates that streaming platforms will invest heavily in high-quality anime reboots. Dragon Ball's established fanbase guarantees that it will have a massive viewership if the series is rebooted. Again, there's that argument of a improved presentation and a new anime. There are some fans who are dismissing the idea of a Dragon Ball anime reboot because they want the Dragon Ball Super anime to return. I think that both of these things could happen at the same time, especially with there being two One Piece anime being produced at the same time. You have the original Toei Animation anime and the reboot with Wit Studio. I think that a similar situation could happen with Dragon Ball. A different anime production takes over for the Dragon Ball anime reboot, and Toei Animation works on the Dragon Ball Super anime. This way, everybody wins. Fans of Super as well as new fans and original fans of the Dragon Ball anime who want to re-experience the series with modern technology. My dream would be to have a remake with animators like Chikashi Kubota working on it. I think enough time has passed and there's been enough proof from existing anime reboots that a Dragon Ball anime remake would be very viable, and it would be a massive success for all parties involved. They would give us better pacing, improved visuals, and insane levels of animation that would help to bring Toriyama's original manga to life in a way that we've never seen before. Again, just look at those scenes from the opening of Dragon Ball Super Superhero, look at some of those reanimated shots from the early episodes of Dragon Ball Daima, and even that all new 30-second commercial which featured reanimated shots of Bulma from the Saiyan and Namek arc. All of this is proof that a Dragon Ball anime remake can look incredible. So yeah, we have now reached the point of the video that I want to hand over the discussion to all of you. Do you agree with the arguments that I'm making that Dragon Ball definitely needs an anime remake? If there's anything that I've forgotten to mention, then let me know by continuing the discussion in the comments. And lastly, thank you for making it to the end of this one, and I cannot wait to see you in my next video.
A massive thank you goes out to all of my amazing Patreon supporters for helping to make this video possible. If you also want to support the channel and see your name in the end of my videos, then check out my Patreon, which has loads of perks like early video access and so much more. Thank you for sticking around till the end of the video, and whatever you contribute will mean a lot to me.